Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast, where we empower women to connect authentically, build strategically, and live life unapologetically AF. It's time for women to embrace that they are powerful at their core and to leverage their expertise, resources, and relationships to build their business, their brand, and their badassery. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins, and we invite you to subscribe to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. Our episodes drop every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern. So listen, enjoy, share, and subscribe. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. I am your host, Kelly Charles Collins. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Dravon James. And I want to read to you a little bit about her background because it's really interesting. And before we came on, I was telling Dravon that I love that she is multifaceted. So you'll hear a little bit about that. And we're going to talk all about her background and what she is up to now. But let me tell you a little bit. Dr. Dravon James is an inspirational speaker, radio host, and the author of Freedom is Your Birthright. Love that. She is the founder of Everyday Peace, which is a platform for her to help and inspire others to build the life of their dreams. She also hosts her own weekly radio show, Everyday Peace, on Unity Radio. Her journey began in poverty on the south side of Chicago. Though she had always dreamt of a career on stage, Dravon went on to earn a doctorate in pharmacy from Creighton University. Along with her medical career and theatrical aspirations, Dravon has always had a keen interest in personal development. And she says that after reading Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking in college, that she went on to make a lifelong study of the power we all have to create the life we want. And I so believe in that we are in charge of our success. We are in charge of our destiny. So I'm so excited to talk to you about that. She's now the happy mother of 2 teenagers, a successful pharmacist, inspirational speaker, author, and actress. I told y'all she was multifaceted. And she continues to inspire and teach what she knows to be the most effective tool for transforming, creating, and building a spectacular life. And that is tapping into everyday peace. So we're going to be talking about all of that today. Dravon, welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And like I said at the very beginning, I love this title, Ladies Who Leverage. I love it.
Yes, I am all about that. You know, it's so funny. Leverage is one of my favorite words. And people often think of it as sort of in a negative context being, maybe somewhat manipulative, but it really isn't, right? Leverage is such a powerful place to operate from. What do you think about that?
I think so. And that's what we're all charged to do. And I was telling you before we came on, I have this philosophy that I developed over years and years and years called the Everyday Peace philosophy. And that is the basic premise. We take everything that shows up in our life, the good, the bad, and everything in between, and we leverage those experiences to help us consciously create our next level of greatness. That is what we have to do. We have to take these experiences, we have to leverage them. That's what they're meant to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And before we talk about Everyday Peace, because I know that is really your baby and that you're working on and really helping women to empower women around that concept. I want to go back a little bit because, we talked about your background and that you are a pharmacist. How did that come into being? Like, where was that? Was that a childhood dream? Is it something that you just fell into? How did that come about?
I'm glad you asked that question because most people always used to ask me, how does an actress do pharmacy, right? So I said, well, how does a pharmacist do acting? And my dream always from a little girl, from the 3rd grade, was to be an actress. That's what I wanted to do. I love literature. I love the stage. And I happen to be very good at math and science. and I like to say very good at acting too, but my mom really wanted me to go on and get a doctorate degree, and preferably in medicine is what her dream was. And so I happened to be sitting in Latin class, and this is what I mean about using everything. I was in the 12th grade, and I knew that I was going to go somewhere and study, literature or acting somewhere. And in Latin class, my counselor said, hey, there's a team downstairs from this college, and they need to talk to somebody. And they thought of me, and they had me come down. And lo and behold, they were from the pharmacy school. And I talked to them. I had been working at a pharmacy in my community. Never really thought about going to pharmacy school, but I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. And I had a passion for helping people, and I think that's how they got me.
Yeah.
But this was another avenue, and I was good in math and science. And so here I am 30 some years later, still practicing pharmacy, still helping people, still using that part of my gift, but very much living in other parts of my gifts as well.
Yeah. And, before we came on, I was saying to you that when you talk about everyday peace and then you look at your role, as a pharmacist and what's going on in our country with COVID, it almost seems that there is kind of a conflict, right, between this peace and then some of the confusion and the chaos that's happening around COVID. So how has COVID impacted you personally, as and in your role as a pharmacist, and how do you balance that against this whole concept of everyday peace?
Oh, that's great. So personally, COVID has been something to behold, right? My life, just like many others' lives, has been negatively impacted with loss. I've lost family members during this time period, and that has been very, very hard. Professionally, it has been, there's this phrase from Charles Dickens, The Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, right? And it's the worst of times for the obvious reasons. We're seeing so much heartache, pain, and despair, but it's the best of times because it's given me as a professional and running a team, an opportunity for growth and development and for team development, because I love team spirit. So it's given us in healthcare and specifically pharmacy ways to practice one of my favorite topics, which is conflict, and ways to get better in conflict, because this is a heated situation, as you can imagine, a lot of emotions here. So I've utilized all of that professionally, but I want to kind of back up a little bit and tell you, when I talk about everyday peace, the definition of peace that I use is that peace is wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality. And that is a little bit different than what most people think of, like the Zen-like state, right? Sitting somewhere in a yoga stance. And I love yoga and I love Zen-like, but would that every day of our life would be that way? It isn't, right? We are a puzzle piece, and my family and I, my kids and I, we've done puzzles every year during the holiday season, right? And you realize that every piece of the puzzle is so very important. You could lose the dark, gloomy cloud and you won't have a complete puzzle. You lose the sunshine and you won't have a complete puzzle. So you realize that if something shows up in your journey, it's a puzzle piece in your journey. It's meant to formulate the total journey for you, the beautiful picture that you have to decide, that's the beautiful picture that I want to have. That's the end that I want to have. So I say that because, COVID has been so impactful, but I've used it as a piece of the puzzle to sharpen my skills as a leader, to strengthen my team and cohesion there, to teach some leadership skills. We've won awards during this time period. We stretched out and have people, teleworking. We never thought that was possible, right? in my industry before, especially in hospital, right? Yeah. So we've done some incredible things in the midst of these very challenging times.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had a conversation with my sister this weekend around COVID, because my mom was attending a funeral of a friend and attending it virtually. And I said, with all of the horrible things that have happened around COVID, it has really opened up so many other opportunities. And also for things that you just said, Dravon, in the hospital setting, not thinking that, somebody could work remotely, or that we could, be having a conversation virtually, or we could have a funeral virtually, all of those things. And I love what you just said about these puzzle pieces and leveraging all of it, because we could have just really taken on COVID as this horrendous thing and been mired in the ugliness of it and not thought about how could we make this better, right? How could we leverage what's happening to us to be able to do all of these amazing things? And so I love that is what when you're thinking about this everyday piece, it is about all of these pieces, right, of our puzzle. And even though you do spell it as peace, like in the Zen, like
Yeah.
the play on words in terms of it's like this everyday piece, right? Every day we have to put a piece in place. Every day we have to leverage a piece. Every day we have to do something with that. Where did that come from? Like that whole concept for you of everyday peace?
Oh gosh, I love telling this story. I'll give you the abbreviated. And I was 17 years old, literally 17 years old. I see it just like it was yesterday. And I had graduated from high school and I was on my way to pharmacy school. And my brother, who's younger than me, he was 16 at the time, comes to me. He gives me this book, the Norman Vincent Peale, Power of Positive Thinking. Now, all these years until like maybe a year or two, I thought he bought that book for me, but no, he took it off my mom's bookshelf and gave it to me, right? But he was always that kid who was always reading nonfiction and these types of books. And so he gave it to me. It's a tiny little book, and I read it, and I read it again. If I read it 20 times before I went to college, it just really something clicked for me when I read that book. And having been a child who was raised in the church, and I was also raised in New Thought, so I was pretty well grounded as far as believing that there was a source outside of myself, but there was a really powerful source within me too. And this book tied it together. So I began then at 17 years old, starting to journal everything and looking at things and analyzing things. And I really, back then, when I started at 17, I thought I was looking for the answer to have a life with no problems. Right? That's the mind of a 17-year-old, right? I was like, I'm going to follow this. I'm not going to have any problems. My life is going to be, I'm just going to stick to this. So, and of course, we know that didn't turn out that way. Right? I had as many challenges and maybe more than, the average person. But what I did realize over the years is what I had discovered was how to leverage everything that came into my life because I was practicing these principles and they were the same principles. I would read something written by this guy, by that woman. And when I boiled it down, they were all saying the same things, and there's some phrase that says it really best. If it's up to be, if it's up to, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. If it's meant to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
And what I know from that is up to my perspective. Now, I may not know all the skills and have all the skills to make the next level happen, but I have the essential ingredient, which is how I perceive this level.
Yeah. And I was thinking, as you say that, probably also the knowledge to know who to find to help you, right? To fill in those gaps.
And sometimes you don't even know that, right? I remember when I've been coaching for a while, and I remember when I wanted to move into executive coaching, and I didn't know how you do that. But just because I knew that everything in my life was preparing me for the next level, I purposed in my conversations, whether I was talking about that or not, I purposed that here I am, executive coaching as an executive coach, as a coach of women. And then one opportunity, I could see my mind becomes more creative because when you set your intention that way, you start to see things in your peripheral vision that you didn't see before, right? You start to say, oh my gosh, there's an opportunity there. You never saw that before. So really first taking that and saying, my perspective on this has to change, no matter how dark this is. My perspective has got to be that this has come into my life, right, to bow down and serve me so that I can get to my next level of greatness. You don't have to have the answer. You just have to have the attitude, right? And the answer will come.
Yeah. And one of the words that you use is so important, intention, right? Setting your intentions, because, when I think about you as I call you multifaceted, and I think about myself as being multifaceted, oftentimes we think that we can't do all of these things, right? We have so many things we want to do. You want to be you're a pharmacist and an actress. And for some people, those two things seem like polar opposites. And people will think, well, I just have to focus on being a pharmacist. I can't really pursue being an actress. But I think it all comes down to your intentions, right? And understanding your intentions and understanding what you just said about like your greatness and being able to follow and, step into your greatness and knowing that you aren't a singularly focused person. So for you, Dravon, what was it that allows, or what is it still that allows you to do all of these things, right? Pharmacy is not easy, right? It's not an easy job. And you were saying that, you're responsible for multiple hospitals and locations. So you have teams, and then you're acting, and you have two teenagers and life. So how do you, and I won't say balance because I don't think there's anything about work-life balance, but what drives you and keeps you in that momentum? And, you know, how do you prioritize, I would say, all of those different things?
So I'll tell you, but my daughter, who's now 21, graduating from college this year, when she was born, I remember looking at her and looking at my husband and saying that I could never honestly tell her to follow her dreams if I don't follow mine. And at that point in my life, I was, practicing pharmacy, had a great career, but I knew I had this burning desire to be an actress. And so she wasn't even 6 months old, and I enrolled and took the acting class and went on to be on The Wire and all these other things. And I said, wow. When I sat down and look at it, I said, there's no way I could do it. I'm working weekends. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? But when I purposed in my heart, that's what I wanted to do, I was able to do it. And I think that first doing it for her and saying that I really want to impart on my children that you really can do and have the things that you want to do and have in life, right? You'll have to prepare for them. There will be sacrifice, but there'll be sacrifice in preparation for the things that you don't want to, right? So stay focused on the things that you do want. So now, and I love you don't like the word balance, because neither do I. I like the word harmony, right? Because when I have harmony and I seek harmony, and I teach this to my coaching clients, that I function on a pyramid, right? And on that pyramid, on all the sides, one side has health, the other side has wealth, and the other side has relationship. And in the center of that, right, is whatever your belief is in a higher power. That's a personal thing for everybody. But I know that for me, I look for opportunity. Whenever I take on something, I say, now, which one of this sides is this on? Is this on the health side, the wealth side, the relationship side? And that helps me to know where I am, how to prioritize it in my life. Healthcare, my job, as you mentioned, providing pharmaceutical care for patients is essential. That's very, very important. And I recognize it as such. But I realize that life is a team sport.
Yeah.
Right? Everything, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I believe it takes a village to do everything, right? So, I coach, and I have a coach, right? So I stay in alignment, and I make sure that I stay healthy first, because the vehicle, I operate out of this vehicle, mind, body, and spirit. I operate out of here. I make sure I stay harmony in this body so that I can push that forth in the world.
Yeah, I think all of that's so important, and alignment is key. And, and ladies who leverage in our network, our community, that's something that I talk to the women about all the time, that to stay in alignment. And that when things, when you find yourself, going over here or going over there, you have to come back. You have to come back to like your center and your purpose. And for you, you were just saying, that triangle, which I love that framework, because it always gives you something to attach to. Yeah. And when you're anchored in something, it allows you to, to be your best self, right? To operate at your highest potential. And so I love that's the framework. And is that a framework, Dravon, that you use for your clients in coaching?
I do. So whether I do it, overtly, or as something that's running in the background, just, you take people for where they are, and coaching is not like therapy. It really is I let them drive, and I see how I can help them stay in their lane, right? So they can get to their place. But in the background, in my mind, I'm always listening for, where does this fit in your life, and how important is that in your life right now, right? How do you rate that in your life? And this is really where you want to put your attention now. And again, let my client make that decision, but that's always in the back of my mind, because I know that when we have harmony, and that means sometimes in our life, we're going to over-index. And in my earlier years, I over-indexed in building a pharmacy career because I didn't have children. I wasn't married in, that time period, and it was okay to do that. But then, as my focus shifts, and then I may push them a little bit more attention to another area. And it's all still in balance, because I'm still making sure that I'm feeding all parts of that life, my health, my wealth, and my relationships.
Yeah. So you mentioned this, you just dropped it in there, but I'm not going to let you just drop it in there, that you were on The Wire, which was one of my favorite shows. I think it is one of the best series ever. On TV. And we were just talking about that the other day with the passing, and his name just slipped my mind, but
Yeah.
I think so many people like in our generation grew up watching The Wire, and that show is very, very intense, right? It was very intense. How did you do that while you were still a farm? So how did you do that? Because listen, being in this, the quote unquote real world, and then going into the world of The Wire, how do you, I'm gonna say balance, but how do you do that? Because that is that just seems like really hard to be able to go into that space and come back out into this, everyday world space.
Yeah. On that particular show, I had the great opportunity of playing two roles. I played Queenie and then her sister Gracie. And it goes back to leveraging, which is why I love the title of your podcast, because I use everything. So my life, when I was younger, I used to segment my life, right? But now as I grew and I started to develop my own philosophy, I use everything. Everything flows into everything. So when I'm acting, I draw on parts of me that I need to run a team and be professional. I draw on parts of me when I'm coaching. I draw on parts of me from my theatrical experiences. I use everything because inside of us, truly, right, we have the capacity to understand and to relate to everything, because we've all have had the emotions of, the most horrible person that we could think of. We've had those emotions run through us. The most angelic person we can think of, the most tragic thing. We've had those emotions. And when I act anyway, I draw on all of that. And it's to me, acting is the most freeing part of my journey, because I get to unapologetically, be express all of those emotions. And then, it's up to a director to say, okay, you can pull back on that a little bit or give us more of that. So yeah, it was very easy for me to do both of those, because I pulled from my day in the pharmacy, and this is what I was feeling there. I pull this emotion and use it and build it into this character.
I love that. And you're still acting?
I am. I slowed down a little bit during the pandemic for the obvious reasons. And I turned down a couple of things, but because we were just so busy in the hospital. But now I am pushing forth and auditioning and raring to go.
That is so awesome. I love it. I love the, you said you were good at math and science. And so that's so much left brain, right? That's so much a left brain thing. And then you talk about your acting, and that's a right brain thing. And for me, I have that same kind of thing where I'm very left brain because of being a lawyer, but I'm also very right brain and being creative. And I love people like that.
Yeah, so do I. I do too. And I relate to everybody, but I really love that energy when you could my daughter says, oh, you could flip it and work it both ways. But I can see it from all these different angles, and it makes the world so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Yeah. And it makes understanding things that people think are so how could you understand that? I definitely can't understand that. I definitely can.
Yeah, because you live in both worlds, right?
Right. Yeah. I see that perspective.
We're a little off, but
right. Right. It makes for good people skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I want to talk to you more about what you're doing with women, because I think, just in all the roles that you've had and being able to coach women. And I know one of the things that you talk about is your Leaders in High Heels coaching program. And you talk about what it takes for a woman to be a powerful, driven leader who is making a difference. And I really want to focus on that part where you say who is making a difference, because there's so many of us, so many women who are aspiring, right? We're always talking about getting the right seat or breaking the glass ceiling or whatever it is these days, right? Of getting to that place, but not necessarily thinking about when we get there, how do we make a difference?
Yeah.
Right. And what that means. So talk to us about that.
I love that question too, because I think if we wait till we get there to make a difference, we're a little late to the party, right? Because packaged in your journey to get to the C-suite or wherever you're going, packaged in that journey has got to be servitude, right? And that is really what I teach. I teach leadership skills, but at the core of that, right, is we've all come to serve. Right. And when you keep that in the forefront of your mind, how does this conversation serve somebody? How does this serve, the product that I'm providing? How does this serve somebody? Even in the things that we do that we, perceive as, not great, doing performance reviews or having to fire someone. How does this serve? And when you come at life in that capacity, you are making a difference. Remembering that now, not every person is going to agree with your approach. They shouldn't, right? We all are different, right? Not every person is going to agree with the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. That's okay. But if you know within yourself, I came to this situation wanting to serve in this capacity. Now, whether or not I hit the mark, that could just take some training, right? Some additional skills. But this is what I came to do. And that's how you make a difference. That's how you get to that top of the mountain, and you can look back and you can see a trail of women coming up that mountain with you, holding onto that rope, because you've been serving the whole way. And you can serve, at the beginning of your career, the middle, and the end. Right. Even if I coach women on leadership skills who do not have a career, who are stay-at-home moms, right? I have stay-at-home wives who don't have children. How lucky is that? We laugh about that all the time, right? But there's service there too. Everything you're doing is making a difference. We are making a difference. And whether or not we're making a positive difference really boils down to, have we defined who we're serving and how we intend to serve them?
Yeah. And it's, it's interesting because we talk about leadership all the time and we attach leadership to a specific title. And so when you just said, I coach women who are at home, they're leaders of their homes too, right?
Yes.
And so we can all be, I think of everybody as a leader. You're a leader in your own right, in your own capacity. And so the things that you're talking about really apply across the board to women across the board, not necessarily, oh, I'm going to go get this position or, so I think that's so important. And then another thing that you just said goes back to Maya Angelou's quote about people remembering, what you said and remembering what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. They may forget how, because you may remember, right? But, the whole concept of how do people feel after having encountered you? Yeah. Right.
So, and you talked about leadership, that you hit the nail on the head. We are always leading. If you stay in the house 24 hours a day and never come out, you have to lead yourself out of a certain mindset, right? Yeah. I always call it leadership of one, right? So the most important person you can lead is yourself, right? And that's huge, right? I coach women all week long who are, we're challenged in that area. Can I lead myself in this conversation? Can I discipline myself? So understanding how we make somebody feel. Number one person, how you make yourself feel. What's that self-talk like? Are you a leader there? Because believe it or not, and we see this, and talk about authentic leadership. We see this so much when you say, I'm not having the impact on my team, my organization, my children, my spouse that I would have. And I always go back to what's the impact that you're having on yourself? Let's talk about that first, because that shines there, right? Because that shines shouts louder than your words, right? Like you said, Maya Angelou says, people will remember how you made them feel. How do you make you feel? Yeah, and that really transitions. Yeah,
yeah. I was laughing the other day. I was talking to the women in the community and I was telling them about, my vision. And I said, I was getting so off track and I had to go back to the root. And I just, I said, like how the Southern people say the root.
The root, and, right.
Right, go back to the root. And so, that's just what you were just saying. When we're thinking outwardly about this is not working, I'm not impacting, they're not listening, I don't feel like they're getting it, whatever that is, because you are the messenger, you have to go back and see what is going on in the vessel, right? That is releasing that message.
Because so often we're looking for the answer externally, right? And I always tell people, our eyes point outward. I wish they pointed inward, because we find the answer so much quicker, right? So, but the answer really is, and not to say that we are the blame. That's not it, right? But we are the source of the good that we want to push forth in the world. We are the source of that, and you have to first start by acknowledging and becoming aware of yourself and taking care of your vessel first, so that you can push forward and help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you say we are the source of the good.
Yeah.
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 That is so important,
Mhm.
as we think about all of the things that we do in the world, and that we want to be, leaders, and we want to be good friends and family, and all of that, that we are the source of the good. And so as we're looking for our everyday peace, we
Oh.
have to, they always say, consider the source.
Consider the source, right? Oh my gosh, I told you, you just took the words out. That is one of my, I said, consider the source. And so you got to start there every morning, right? It's part of your leadership rituals and routines, right? Start there, consider the source before you push forward, before you say that, have that really difficult conversation, or, even that praise, right? Because I've heard people say, I was trying to uplift somebody and they took it the whole wrong way. And I'm saying, well, let's go back to as you say, the root. Let's go
Yeah,
back to the root.
girl, go back to the root and figure out it's funny that you say that, because one of the things I teach on courageous conversations, and I tell them at the end, I'm like, if you remember nothing else that I said to you, here's two things that you need to know before you even get into these conversations. What is your intention and what is your objective? So why are you doing it and what do you hope to get out of it? And that is exactly what you just said, because you have to go back and see, well, why was I even trying to accomplish this in the first place?
Absolutely.
Right. And if you don't know that, you don't know the why, and you don't know how you intended for people to feel, or what you intended the outcome of whatever conversation or interaction to be, you will just go off the rails. Right. And so, right. So the source is not, when the source doesn't have the right direction, or is out of alignment, then we get into these problems where we're thinking, well, we're not a good leader, or I don't have good followers. And it's not necessarily that. And like you said, it's not about blame. It's about understanding the source.
You're so, oh my gosh. You bring out so many powerful points here. If you leap forward, it's just like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing which strand sticks. Know what is your why?
Yeah.
And what were you looking to get out of this, right?
Yeah.
And you'll find that so much of what we do is haphazard a lot of times, right? Because we walk in, we don't know, we don't have a why. We just, this was a good thing to do at this point. In your team, and even if you have a team of just children, they look at you like, well, what sense does that make?
Right. Why are we doing this today?
Why are we doing this today? Right. So yeah, you want to be intentional in your actions, and and you can still have fun. I believe in having a lighthearted approach to life, and just really being in the now, and all the gratitude that you can find for this moment. Yeah.
I love it. Dravon, this has been such an awesome conversation. How can people find out more about you and Everyday Peace? How can they connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is on my website, which is www.drdravonjames.com. And I'll tell you why you want to rush over there right now, because I have a free giveaway, which is how to improve your self-esteem and your self-confidence as a leader. But I'll tell you this, everything that I teach in leadership can transition into your personal life. You can see a huge impact on you. I have a client has 3 daughters, and she's using this with herself, and she's seeing an improvement in her daughters as well. Self-esteem and self-confidence are key. They're foundational to building an incredible life. So that's absolutely free on my website, and that's www.drdravonjames.com. And then I'm on the radio, as you mentioned, every Monday at a live radio program at 5 p.m. Eastern time on the Unity Online Radio Network. And then every social media outlet that I know how to work. So that's Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram.
Okay, no problem. And we'll make sure that all of Dravon's links are there for you to be able to contact her and to connect with her, listen to her radio show. And, that last point that you just made is that, self-confidence, self-esteem, leadership, those things transcend profession, right? It does go over into our personal life. So I'm glad that you added that, and we are the source for good. So thank you, Dr. Dravon, for being on the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. And thank you all for watching and listening. We so appreciate that you join us here on the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. If you are a female entrepreneur and you are looking for a place where you can connect, a safe, supportive environment where you can connect authentically, build strategically, and live life unapologetically AF, then I want to invite you to apply for our exclusive invite only Ladies Who Leverage community. We are all about making sure that women build thriving businesses and can live life unapologetically AF, because like Dr. Dravon says, freedom is your birthright. So you should be free to live the way that you desire. So make sure that you're always tuning in to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. We drop our new episodes on Mondays at 9 a.m. Make sure that you subscribe, that you listen, you enjoy, and you share. And until next time, take care. Thank you for joining us. This podcast has been brought to you by Lady Lawyer Media. Make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you are a female entrepreneur or business owner and you're looking for a safe, supportive ecosystem to create and share ideas and information, build a thriving business, and live life unapologetically AF, then I'd invite you to apply to Ladies Who Leverage. We're an exclusive community of badass female entrepreneurs. So if that sounds like you, go to www.lwlcollab.com. That's LWLCOLLAB as in boy.com, so that you can apply to join us in our amazing badass network. And until then, I want you to unleash your badassery and live life unapologetically AF.